Good day, Stephen Davidson. In this video, we will look at the broad scope of the PHA and then other charges that can be related to it, as well as the timing and the filing of its other charges, because this relates also to your defense. Please familiarize yourself with the indemnity warning here, and if you do not agree with it, then do not continue. Now, the Protection of Harassment Act has a very broad scope. It can overlap with events in the workplace, with defamation, with repeated offensive newspaper articles, with family violence issues, etc. The court writes, I agree that the Act has application and may prove useful in the workplace environment as it enhances the remedies for the harassment in the workplace available under other legislation. It enhances the remedies. Outside the workplace, a complainant may seek relief under the Act, although he/she may also have recourse for relief against harassment under the Domestic Violence Act, given the comprehensive ambit of the Act. So, the fact is the Act overlaps and is very broad. The PHA itself refers to this broad scope when it states in Section 2.b, if a complainant or a person referred to in subsection 3 is not represented by a legal representative, the clerk of the court must inform the complainant or person in the prescribed manner of the right to also lodge a criminal complaint against the respondent of criminal injury, insult, trespass, extortion, or any other offense which has a bearing on the persona or property of the complainant. So, you can lay a charge of harassment, but at the same time also have other charges against a person. And the broad scope of the PHA is precisely why the court does not independently adjudicate other legal matters. Instead, such issues are evaluated solely in relation to the elements and definition of harassment. In other words, the court will not ask, is this event, whether you call it assault, defamation, or anything else, meet its legal definition of defamation? What the court will ask, does this event, regardless of how you characterize it, assault or whatever, meet the legal definition and elements of harassment? That's what the harassment court is there for. So even if the event does not align with the legal definition of another claim, such a definition, because defamation is, it must be true, one of the things, it must be true, it must be published, and so on. It may still be addressed, that issue, under harassment. But you see, man, did the person assault him, hurt him, was there other people, and you go to jail for assault? No. Did you harass the person? As part of harassment, there was an assault. You see, so that is a distinction you must make. And the reason why the PHA is so comprehensive, it is very comprehensive. It says, given the comprehensive ambit of it is essential that a consistent approach be applied to the evaluation of the conduct complained of, although the factual determination will depend on the circumstances under or the context with which alleged harassment occurred. If the conduct against which protection is offered by the Act were to be construed too widely, the consequences will be a plethora of applications premised on conduct not contemplated by the Act. On the other hand, too restrictive or narrow construal may unduly compromise the objectives of the Act and constitutional protection it offers. Therefore, the interpretation of the term harassment as defined in the Act is significant. It's not, did he attack you with a broom, or did he no? In that, or did he, when they publish something, was it defamation? No. They look at it, when the person done something, wrote something, told something about you, walked past you, whatever, was it a harassment? That's what the court look for, not if whatever. Then in Moos, the court says, the court hearing the application or an appeal in terms of harassment allegations cannot extend itself to assault allegations or charges. The appellant should institute criminal proceedings for assault in that regard. As if you feel you were assaulted, come and lay assault charges. That's what you must do. This court here does not deal with assault, with defamation, with loss of money or what. This court deals with theft or whatever. This court deals with harassment. Everything must. If this thing doesn't comply with being harassment, sorry, but this only focuses on harassment, theft or whatever, can overlap. But this court deals with harassment. Now you get other charges. Specifically in this issue, we want to go to labor-related charges. In section 22B of the PHA, it seems that a complainant can be informed of the right to pursue additional charges. Now these additional charges appear to be laid either after or concurrent with the filing of a PHA charge. You come and you claim harassment. Right before it, you could have laid a charge of assault or the person advised you, the clerk, so, man, since you laid now the harassment charge, go and you can lay a charge of assault or whatever charges. These charges may be related to issues of the law, but also include work-related steps. Things that relate to your work. This may be because of the unique strength of the PHA, namely to prevent a continuation and a future occurrence of harassment, and this thing acts immediately. The other laws take their time. Harassment Act is now, it's immediately, it's quick. A quick solution to a problem, to occur, to stop and prevent the thing from occurring. According to section 22P of the Act, after having received a complaint, the clerk of the court must inform a complainant of their right to pursue additional charges. These additional charges may be laid either after, for, or concurrently with the filing of the PHA charge, or at the same time. You see, here's your charge of harassment. You can then, after that, they tell you directly thereafter, more or less at the same time, man, go from here, you go to the police and lay another charge, and let's just do it. Now, if in the timeline of this Mnyandu case, the PHA charge was brought after the internal disciplinary charge. Internal disciplinary charges, it was a thing at the work, were completed while the PHA proceedings were still ongoing. And the magistrate and the High Court had no issues. You had the issue at work, the problem at work, the things were ongoing, let go. And there's a harassment case was still ongoing. I just want to tell you a little bit more about the case. On the 4th May, Ms. Mnyandu sent the email to Mr. Padiaki, a co-worker at Mondeveld. It contains slander, false allegations. 6 May, Mr. Padiaki responded to Ms. Mnyandu with an email denying allegations and informing her that misconduct charges will be laid against his disciplinary charge issues. At 24 May, Ms. Padiaki applied for protection order. Mr. Padiaki, you see, these two things went together. And while no interim order was granted, both parties were ordered to appear in court. On June 20th, a grievance hearing was held, and the chairperson found Ms. Mnyandu's allegations were substantial. So, it's a disciplinary thing at work. They're still running a court case, a harassment case. These things can happen. Before, after work, whatever. 20 June, Mr. Mnyandu filed an opposing, Mrs. Mnyandu opposing me to it. 10 July, Mr. Padiaki filed replying affidavit. So this is basically called your oral evidence, your protection order, just to show you that in this case, there is case law where things happened concurrently, more or less at the same time or whatever. The other charges here at the end continue, and you get your PHA asked. That's what basically I want to illustrate here. So it appears that if you have other charges, it can be brought before and after the PHA, your harassment case. The question is, how long before or after the harassment case? A charge that you lay, can other charges be filed? Is there a time limit? It doesn't look to me like that. But the PHA is not blind to time, ne? The PHA, the Prevention of Harassment, only came into effect 27th of April, and it does not apply to incidents before that period. So time is also relevant. This is the same. In section 11.5, she said, in considering whether or not the complainant or related person is suffering harm or may suffer imminent harm, as provided in section 4b, the member of South African Police Service must take into account the length of the time since the alleged breach is taken. So the act, it's not blind to time. Time is important. The incident happened then, and now you come. What? You must take that length of time into consideration. Yeah? Here's a PHA incident, there's other charges, and now the problem is, the further in time, here you have the PHA charge. Yeah? The further in time there is between the other charge and the PHA charge, then questions start arising. You first lay your charge, and 2 years later you lay a PHA charge, or you lay a PHA charge, and thereafter, 1 year later, you in other charges, and then you related to the harassment. You say it's related to harassment. Now, the longer the period is, 1 year, a few months, now questions start arising. In one case, the court writes, the second incident is notionally actionable and occurred 2 years before the respondent actually saw the protection of the act. Had the second incident been overwhelmingly the oppressor, then I have no doubt that the respondent, who by then was an adult, would have immediately taken steps against the appellant. She did not do so. See the court say, why did you wait in 2 years before you wanted the protection of the Harassment Act? No, man, there's something funny. You did not believe it was so overwhelming, oppressive, insult of what is going on here. Thank you very much for watching this video. We love constructive comments and criticism. Please like and share this video, and please subscribe.